How do you know that you're fully recovered from a workout? And is that even important to the training process? I want to say you don't want to be fully recovered, meaning all your systems recovered at once, because of the different length of SRA curves, meaning the time that it takes to recover and adapt from training, where muscular systems, tendons and ligaments, neural systems take different lengths to recover. If you waited for everything to be recovered, likely some things would have started detraining by that point. So yes, it's okay to train even if you still have some soreness. As you get into consistent training for a longer term, you shouldn't be experiencing a ton of delayed onset muscle soreness between training sessions. So that might be something to be wary of in terms of fatigue management. But you can and definitely should be still training before you're entirely recovered, meaning every system is recovered. You can learn more about this in our videos on the principle of SRA and fatigue management. Is there such a thing as too much squat depth? Can you be squatting too deep? And for competitive powerlifting, definitely. You do not need to squat excessively deep. There are no bonus pounds being given for squatting 2, 3, 4 inches below parallel. You need to squat to the legal standard, the hip crease below the top surface of the knee. Of course, every federation's interpretation of that's going to vary a little bit. If you are squatting what you feel is excessively deep, switching from a heeled shoe to a flat shoe could help prevent that. Also being very active with your feet, trying to screw your feet, externally rotate your feet into the ground is going to create a more stable and tight hip and usually bring the floor of your ceiling up, or the floor of your squat up a little bit higher. The ability to recover and how much training someone can handle is certainly a trainable characteristic. Of course, like most things in training, it is highly influenced by genetics, and there's nothing you can do to change that. But what you have, you can certainly increase through strategic loading over the long term, increasing volume, decreasing rest periods. All of those are going to be able to increase your work capacity over time. Certainly, it's also going to be influenced by size of the lifter, strength, gender, proximity to career peak, fiber type, all that stuff that we talked about in the principle of individual differences video. But you can certainly increase your work capacity through strategic loading schemes over time, adding more volume, whether that's more reps, more sets, and also cutting down rest periods. If you're a high bar squatter looking to transition to becoming a low bar competitive squatter, you need to make the transition gradual. And this is going to go for any of the lifts and big technical changes like close grip to wide grip benching, conventional to sumo pulling. You need to find a way to kind of ease yourself into it, because if you go from the bar on top of your traps to now 3 inches down your back in one training session, of course, it's going to feel terrible. You're probably going to squat really bad, and you might just scrap the idea altogether. So allow yourself to make gradual changes, quarter of an inch, half an inch at a time. Understand that there's going to be an adjustment period. Do frequent, high frequency training sessions of the new technique that you're trying to practice at very low intensity, so you can think about the technique more and not just have to worry about, can I lift the weight on the bar?
What exercises are best used for the hypertrophy phase in weightlifting is really going to be determined by your weaknesses. The primary things you're going to need to focus on are preserving technical skills in the movements. So exercises that emphasize the power position, the second pull, block snatches, hang snatches from the high hip, those kind of things are good for preserving the skill of turning the bar over and maintaining speed. The other exercises that are really good for hypertrophy phases that you're going to emphasize, obviously squatting, pulling, push pressing, and general strength exercises like that.
How long should a hypertrophy training block be before you transition into a strength block? First off, this is going to be determined by competition calendar. The answer is going to be much different if you're 12 weeks away from a meet rather than if you're 30 weeks away from a meet. The guideline for this, though, beyond competition calendar is going to be level of experience of the lifter. Beginner lifters need to dedicate more of their time towards hypertrophy training, because the biggest difference you're going to see between a beginner lifter and an advanced lifter is how much muscle that person has. So if you're a beginner lifter, I would try and dedicate about 50% of your training energy towards hypertrophy training. That's going to happen whether it's in the short term or the long term. So if you have a 12-week training cycle, maybe 6 weeks of hypertrophy. If you have a 6-month training cycle, maybe 3 months of hypertrophy. If you're getting excessively sore as you get back into hard overload type of training coming off a deload week, that's a really good indicator that the deload week was probably not sufficient volume or sufficient intensity, and you may have likely lost fitness during that time. So a deload should be about 60 to 75% of the normal volume of training at 80 to 90% of normal intensity. So if you did 300 for 5x8 during your last week of hard training, maybe your overreaching week, you're going to want to cut that down to maybe 270 for 3x8 or 5x6 during a deload to make sure you retain fitness while still decaying fatigue.
Grind Sports Nutrition is committed to providing athletes with the highest quality supplements to fuel their training. Grind products are designed by Renaissance Periodization and contain only ingredients and dosages with substantial bodies of evidence to support their effectiveness. No fluff or fillers. Get on your grind because your success is earned, not given.